and we had 3 homes to collapse into the ocean. That's been going on since 2020. Well, it happened again. 3 more homes just gone right into the ocean. Derek Lytle, our reporter extraordinaire, is here to talk more about that. Hey, how you doing?
I'm better now that I'm out of the 60-mile-an-hour winds and freezing over there.
Out of the elements.
And the OBX, yeah, but no, they're getting hit hard.
They're really getting hit.
It's hard for them down there to see it. And you mentioned since 2020, I think the gentleman I just spoke to over Zoom says we're up to 4 in the last 24 hours. And
okay, 4.
Yeah, that means that it's 31 now since 2020.
31.
And those are properties, whether they're rental properties or properties people live in. That's a lot of homes to talk about. You can see some of this footage that was just taken this early morning. And it's eerily similar to when we were down there in October when we had those homes fall. But it seems like they can't catch a break with that. You look at that, the power of that water just hitting right where they're at. They're braver than I am, I'll tell you that. But it's a lot. And, they're saying, how do we move forward with this? Why didn't we address this in October moving forward? And could we have prevented some of these homes by moving them? There's a whole bunch of questions people have. And if we keep continuing in this direction, we're up to 31 already in the last 5.5, 6 years almost. And they're like, are we going to have a Buxton, North Carolina? Is that whole tourism spot going to cease to exist? Because there's no homes down there, and then it's just washed away. Because I'll tell you, the road conditions, every single time we go down there for weather coverage, NC-12 shuts down.
Yeah.
And it overwashes easier, than riding a bicycle down the street.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of questions extending from these homes falling down today and from the snowstorm this weekend, Janet.
So the one we're looking at here, this is in Buxton. Okay. All right, and the other 2 or 3?
The other 3 are all in that Buxton area.
In that Buxton area.
Like Tower Road Circle is where our crews, where I and then Alex back in October were at, right off that one road, kind of where all the lines of houses were. And since that first level fell, there is now a second level that the homes are starting to fall. And I had a interview with, I don't know if we can pull up the audio from him, but he's actually standing right where those second homes are when I was talking to him.
Yeah, I would love to hear that.
And he kind of just gave a little bit of perspective.
Okay.
Kind of worried about now, because when we lose those houses, then it's really, really bad at that point.
He's talking about that second level of homes right behind him. It seems like every time something like this happens, the next row is now beachfront. And so it's like, where does the concern lie as far as moving forward? He talks in the interview, I'll get into it more in our later shows tonight, but he talks about, can we build a jetty? What has been the plans with Dare County? What, how has it been addressed yet? And so I think that's going to get the ball only rolling further as far as government and talking about what next steps are, even with the Park Service down there. I think there's a lot of questions on people's minds.
Yeah, a lot of questions. I mean, it's amazing to see, though. Every time you see the video of one of those homes, it's like that's a whole house just like gone in seconds, really.
Well, and Janet, back in October, I was picking up pieces of foosball tables, old refrigerators, but these are people's memories just floating down the beach. And he just sent me a video of a refrigerator floating within the structure of the house, still in the water, and it's just crazy to see, and it's a lot of stuff you don't see often as far as items of someone's home floating in the ocean. It's he brings up even concern that they're not running some of their businesses that take people out fishing and doing things like that on the water right now, because all of that debris you see floating can just get pushed right back out in the ocean.
Right.
And if you have one piece of plywood, something like that, come and strike your boat, and he said they're pretty damaged for the entire season if something like that happens. So there's a lot to worry about with these structures, not just the debris walking around there. It impacts the environment and how the ecosystems even operate in the water.
Now, do you know, was this an area that was cordoned off before they fell this weekend?
No, not to my knowledge. It seems to be, because this road is maybe like a half mile or less down from the 2 older motels that sit right there where all the overwash comes into play. So not to my knowledge, but every time it overwashes, it's like right off Tower Circle, and then you get those homes that are right directly impacted by the ocean, but we were able to pretty much walk around, and that water starts to recede after high tide, so you can start to address some things. But what we saw when we were there is, people saying that, and we don't get this snow mixed in with it. It almost is another element that you have to deal with. That you're like, why?
Gosh. Because it's been so cold that,
Well, and the wind was stronger this weekend than when we were back there for hurricane season. It almost felt double the strength. And, the snow didn't really stick to the beachfront, but I think it was those main roads. Even on our drive back through Grandy and other places that got even more snow, those roads are icy. They're
pretty bad.
They're bad. Yeah. So you're not going more than 20 miles an hour even on the way home.
Yeah. Well, it's rare when they get that kind of snow, but as cold as it's been, and then the nor'easter, which we're used to a lot of the nor'easters, and there are many times when they're really strong. People think hurricane, and you get a good nor'easter. Some of the most damage that has happened in Hampton Roads has been from a nor'easter and not a hurricane.
And the thing that stuck out to me when we were down there, it was I know it's the off season for them, it's not the summertime, but it was a ghost town. You didn't have the people out trying to celebrate the elements. I feel like people were kind of more cautious and safe this time around because of how bad it was. Just the power of the winds mixed with the snow, sleet, and all that. I think people enjoyed their time indoors this time around.
Yeah, that was a little different. I do notice sometimes when there is a threat of a hurricane that you always run into some brave people down there.
You park the beach chair out there and they're sightseeing.
They're like we're
chasers.
good, we're all right, and so this was something. This is a little different.
And then even in Kill Devil Hills area or towards Nags Head, we had a house catch on fire too.
Oh gosh,
and
there have been so many
down.
fires lately.
And Nags Head fire was like, this is something rare that we have to fight in the middle of a snowstorm, is a whole roof burning and collapsing in. Thankfully, there was nobody at the residence at the time, but you have a fire, you have houses falling in the water. It almost feels like Armageddon, like things are ending, the world's ending almost, because you got snow, houses falling, fire. It's like all the elements in one system. It was pretty remarkable.
Yeah. Just kind of everything at one time, which is a bit much. And so these houses have always been, for the most part, unoccupied, but yet they still have a lot of things in them that people could be using that they're losing. Yeah, like the refrigerator you mentioned and the foosball.
Almost like paused in time, because it's your summer house or a place for Airbnb or people to stay, and it's got all the things you would want in the summer: beach balls and pool tables, fridges. It's eerily like the ghost elements of it hasn't been touched in a couple of years, because some of those were condemned and so they were just sitting vacant, but a lot of them are still rental properties that are still good to go. So it was like, it's that fine line of, and he had mentioned people waiting for insurance claims, but you can't claim the insurance until the home falls into the ocean, and all this back and forth that goes with it. And it's a mess, just like you see the debris floating around.
So next to these homes here that we're looking at, there are other homes.
Oh yeah,
that are intact.
And I was texting him back and forth just now, the man I interviewed, and he's saying, we're looking at a fifth one that looks like it's going to come down at any minute. So it's not something that goes away just because the snow goes away, I guess, or the system goes away. It's
right. Something
they kind of have to monitor all the time. And that was the power of the waves that we saw down there was almost more than the hurricane. And so it's like, unfortunately, we couldn't get down to the Buxton area. I wanted to be down there to check it out myself, but they shut down the roads like within an hour of us being in Rodanthe. So luckily we got back to where the hotel was, or kind of would have been sitting ducks for a while.
Oh, yeah, get blocked down in there, yeah. And so these are homes that were probably being used just this past summer, maybe?
I think several of them could have, been used this summer. Whether it was rentals or family going rentals? Down for vacation or something like that. But there's a lot of them that have fallen were empty, condemned, or haven't been used in a couple of years because it wasn't safe. But some of these ones that are beginning to fall now weren't the ones that were in the first row. So you're starting to get some of those ones that were still usable and a part of our summertime fun last year. So
that is scary.
Yeah.
I had imagined that the way it was happening is that you had like this large group of homes that clearly, had a target, and people were like, stay away because the next rainstorm or the next whatever.
And there's nothing once these homes fall to protect the next level of homes because it's just it's hitting faster. I saw a sign. It was down at the beachfront, and there was a sign on a property across the street saying "Future Beachfront Property."
Oh wow!
And I'm like, come on, man.
Like, they may be right.
Hey, like that's a little bit of a shot at your neighbors there, but
yeah. Because it's you would think that the next row. There's got to be some discussion about what do we do now. Mm-hmm. I'm sure when the first one started falling back in 2020, people probably thought, okay, we're good.
Just a couple, not 31.
But it just keeps happening.
Yeah, and that's where he got to the point of, we want this to be a fun spot for future generations of kids to enjoy surfing, fishing, being down there in the beautiful weather, and that's not going to exist if I feel like something changes, because you can't just have that number go to 100 homes, because that's the whole infrastructure down there. It's not a big territory in Buxton. So,
Right. Amazing. I was looking at the timeline. So the first one collapsed May 29th, 2020. It was in the overnight hours. And this was in Rodanthe.
Okay.
This one was in Rodanthe. Then in February. And so it took 2 years before the next one fell.
So people probably didn't think it was a real big
They
issue.
might have thought that might have been an isolated incident, And then February 9th in 2022, it was a calm winter day. A calm winter day, and a house collapsed. And this was on Ocean Drive in Rodanthe. And then, and then about 2 months later, during a nor'easter, the next one fell in on the same, probably like almost right next door in Rodanthe. And actually 2 fell that day. Okay. And so then you go a whole year before the next one falls in Rodanthe, and this was in March of 2023. Then you go another whole year, and the next one falls in Rodanthe, and this is May of 2024. And then you had, so the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that fell were all in Rodanthe. And this is all the way through November 15th of 2024. And then you skip over to 2025, and that's probably back when you were there covering the hurricane, September 16th and that time frame. And that's when that's when the houses in Buxton started falling, and they just like one after another, like all the way through, all the way through October 28th, and just a whole bunch of them fell during that time. Wow. And so now February 1st, here we are back in Buxton.
It was eerie because for a time we were able to, back on Saturday, we were able to get down to Rodanthe. The road was still open. And I went and we stood and did a live shot right where I did one way back in like August or September where there was 2 homes standing. And we just did another one this weekend where there was just 1 home. And so I went back and watched the tape of my last live shot versus this one, and there's only 1 house behind me now.
Wow.
And Rodanthe is about 45 minutes or maybe an hour depending on road conditions from Buxton, so it's even further up, and that's still affecting the entire coast there. So
that's a shame. And hopefully, the people, because I know dealing with insurance cannot be easy.
Yeah,
it's anything but.
Yeah,
And so, they have a lot before them to try to, and hopefully people in that area are doing what they need to do to prepare. Because I did take a look at some of the things that the National Park Service is doing since 2022, ways that they're trying to protect the area. They're communicating with owners of the collapsed houses, regarding the importance of removing the debris, which, that's got to be a bummer there to have to implementation of closures around other threatened houses in Rodanthe.
Well, and someone had mentioned last time I was out there that, let's say a homeowner doesn't necessarily get to it quickly enough or like they want to take their time cleaning up the debris they're responsible for, then it kind of falls on the people living there that are impacted by the debris daily to say, hey, how do we start cleaning this up because it's not moving fast enough. So it's a process of community coming together to try and remove the debris, and it's not necessarily like even if it's not your home, it technically starts to become your responsibility because you want to clean up where you live and make sure it's not a safety hazard. So that was what was interesting to me. The guy I talked to this morning said, he would like to see there had been talks about jetty systems or bridges or things that have been implemented a little more north that maybe they can implement all the way down towards Buxton to kind of give a little bit of a shield or protection there to the roadway and to the infrastructure to see like how do we move forward safely without 4, 5, 6 homes falling, maybe one every 5 years instead of 31 in 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so many last year. I mean, like something like 10 or 20 or
I don't
something.
know what sparked the chain of events, but it seems like whatever moved in the sand or whatever caused the first 4 or 5 to start falling, it just a chain reaction.
It was a chain reaction. So
Yeah.
it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. No, 11 plus 5 is what, 16? 16 I'm counting in 2025, if my math is right here. But some of the other things, when we talked about the removal of the debris, does the town or, I wonder how much responsibility.
I think the Park Service stepped in last time and
Park Service
was helping out too. Like I said, it's a lot of
Right.
people all coming together. They've always had that mindset down there of neighbor helping neighbor and checking on people. I mean, that even happened to us. We were on the side of the road for our live shots this weekend, and we had a police officer, we had 4 or 5 community members pull over, say, hey, are you guys in distress? Do you need help? I'm like, no, we're just telling the news.
Okay, well, that's
we're okay,
good.
but I really appreciated it because it's
Yeah.
like they didn't have to do that. But,
Right.
going out of your way just to make sure, hey, are they broken down? Because it was blizzard conditions, so we probably did look a little crazy on the side of the road.
Been there.
Yeah, I
been
bet.
there. Yeah, I do see where the Park Service has cleaned up miles
Okay.
of beach debris associated with each of the house collapses. And then in partnership with Dare County, they've communicated with dozens of owners of other threatened houses to relay concerns about the structural stability of pilings and decks and exposed septic tanks, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that was
and wires.
The nasty part was the septic tanks, and we're walking around in a foot or two of water last time that storm system came in, like in October, and you had floating boards with nails and those down lines, and then it's just like you got to start thinking about, okay, like where is safe for people to walk?
Yeah,
because you had young kids walking around without shoes on, and I was like, I was a little nervous, but
they got to keep people out of that, of those areas, because that can be extremely dangerous. But they've had a lot of public meetings too in Rodanthe, following the collapses there. So I would imagine that the residents are fairly educated and know, if it's their home, that might be threatened. Hopefully they do, but it just seems like it's creeping up, and maybe, surprising a few people, but.
I think they take pride on welcoming people that maybe don't live there for the summertime, things like that. There's a sense of pride, like this is a beautiful place, and we want to keep our home like that. So I think there's been a lot of looking into it, but it's just about action moving forward and saying how do we fix that issue.
Right.
There's a lot of steps that happen between those meetings and getting something from the paper books to action down on the road. So
And it's such a beautiful area. You're from
San Francisco.
Okay. So had you been to the Outer Banks before you moved here?
I hadn't. My mom said I went and attended a sports broadcasting thing at Chapel Hill in North Carolina.
Chapel Hill,
yeah. So I went there
Hills.
and I was learning some stuff that came down from like Stuart Scott and all that because I wanted to do sports.
Knew him well.
And so my parents went to see the lighthouse in the Outer Banks, and then because I called my mom when the first time we sent me down there from 13 News. And she's like, yeah, we went and checked out the lighthouse when you were down in Chapel Hill. We went down and saw the Outer Banks. I'm like, oh, so you guys went and I didn't go. So,
okay.
So my first time down there was the first time we sent me back in summertime. But
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, good.
It's beautiful though.
It is beautiful. It is quiet, calm, scenic, and people just love it. Yeah, growing up in North Carolina, which grew up on the other side of the state though, but I just remember so many classmates just every summer. That's where they would spend so much of their time.
Well, I'll tell you, it was a lot more fun doing the news in my my swim shorts than the snowboard equipment.
Right.
But we made do with it. It was a good time.
Yeah, good job. You always do a good job.
Thanks, Jen.
So coming up at 4, you're going to have some stories at 4, 5, and 6 o'clock?
Yeah, we'll have a quick kind of intro story at 4, and then I'll be getting into the big elements at 5 and 6, and we'll show a lot of that video, and you'll hear him talk through the video, and I'll kind of break down some of the stuff that goes into what's next for keeping that area safe and moving forward.
Okay. All right. Well, we look forward to it. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, thanks, Janet.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
I appreciate it. And we are going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.